This emergency edition of the Politics program is brought to you, as always, by The Contender, the game of presidential debate. Head on over there. Man, buy the game, whatever. The 2016 expansion is going to be early. That's all you really need to know. Also, buy patreon.com/JURY. Listen, there was a time when I wouldn't be able to do these kind of emergency things because I had a job. No longer is that the case because you guys support me over at patreon.com/JURY. Oh, less than $100 away from $700. Listen, we're going to talk about this all again when we do the actual show. What do you say we just go ahead and start?
Politics, 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 politics. Politics, yes.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Emergency. Politics. Everything's changed. Everything's different. This is an emergency edition of the Politics program. My name is Justin Robert Young. Okay. Geez, man. I thought we were going to have a bit of an interesting show on Friday, right? I thought we were going to have a lot of news that we were going to be able to talk about on Friday. But we can't wait. We can't wait. We can't wait till Friday because I'm going to bet you that between Wednesday and Friday, enough other stuff is going to happen that we'll have a full show on Friday. So we might as well do this show right now. This isn't going to be a full edition. This isn't going to have all the accoutrement. We're not going to have a pole dance. We're not going to have letters and everything. It's just going to be me talking. Because the last 24 hours, we have had the culling. The culling has occurred. We now have had our Royal Rumble. We now have had our selection. And ladies and gentlemen, the main event is set. In one corner, representing the Democratic National Committee, she is a veteran of the game, somebody who's been in that house. She is First Lady. She will be the first woman president should she prevail. Ladies and gentlemen, Hillary Clinton. Now, I know all the Bernie fans are saying, wait, but Bernie won Indiana. Why are you saying that Hillary Clinton is the presumptive nominee? Nothing's finished. Nothing's over. This is all just part of the system, and all the superdelegates will eventually flip. And I'm sure that that is being resonated at Bernie Sanders' headquarters with the 6 people who still work there. But in the red corner, representing his own damn self, a man who has been in politics for as many months as he has had wives, representing the party that used to stand for Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, and Jeb with an exclamation point, who once treasured Marco Rubio as the future and now cowers before the power of the man with the orange skin, Donald J. Trump. It's over, folks. Ted Cruz vanquished. John Kasich apparently leaving now. All right, where do we break this down? Let's go ahead and start with what happens in Indiana. It is a big romp for Donald. It was expected to be something close only but a few weeks ago before the primaries in New York. This was in Connecticut. This was going to be a Ted Cruz win. It was going to effectively block Trump's nomination or pathway to 1237. That then set up a big battle in California. Not so much. Ted Cruz not only takes a licking in both of the northeastern primaries, but the man who is supposed to be the stopgap there for the hashtag Never Trump movement, John Kasich, farts on his own balls. Completely ineffectual. This theoretically was the only reason why John Kasich was still in the election, was to stop Donald Trump so he could get to a contested convention. So you want to know what? Let's go with John Kasich before we get to Ted Cruz, because I got a question. What in the hot hell was the deal? What were you thinking, dog? John. What the hell was the plan past Ohio? Was it literally just to pop the crowds of people the 18 people that would show up to your rallies? You had a better than expected New Hampshire. You won the state wherein you're a popular governor. Like this, let's just go ahead and rewind. As soon as it becomes clear that Donald Trump was coming out stronger than expected out of the Northeast, there was a plan hatched between John Kasich and Ted Cruz. They even put out a press release saying that they would now strategically start politicking for the rest of the campaign, i.e., they'd come to an agreement that John Kasich would cancel his campaign stops in Indiana in exchange for Ted Cruz canceling his campaign stops in New Mexico and Oregon. Now, this little plan lasts about 48 or 24 hours because John Kasich literally the next morning says, well, I'm not going to ever say people shouldn't vote for me. Okay, cool, John. Hey, John, real cool. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so you made a plan, you put out a press release, and then immediately you backdoored the plan. Great. Okay, so that's really awesome. That's really cool. You're still polling like a pile of poop. And then Indiana happens. And, Cruz loses. So, I mean, I guess here's the thing. Even if you wanted to just stay in the game, because, again, he is running fourth in a three-man race by the time that Indiana votes. Marco Rubio, or as I like to say on this show, Marco Rubio. Because I don't get the chance to say that anymore. He still has more delegates than John Kasich. John Kasich is fourth out of three people. So if your idea was to just stay in the race so it can get to a big, ugly contested convention, and at some point somebody says, what about John? Then the idea would be to stop campaigning. Just take your, maybe, or you do very light campaigning. You do strategic campaigning. And you say, listen, we are strategically trying to go to the places that will benefit us the most. And effectively, you wind up, trying to go to places where you're going to hinder Trump as opposed to hindering Cruz. Except for the fact that they were never really able to get on the same side. And this is really the biggest takeaway of the GOP primary. And there are a lot of really interesting takeaways, including the fact this Friday, I will tell you why Donald Trump is maybe the most important candidate in terms of people who like the stuff that I like in politics over the last 50 years. Since Dwight D. Eisenhower, nobody has been as influential, I believe, in the coming elections as Donald Trump has been in this one in terms of how people run a campaign. And I'll explain to you why that is not crazy on Friday. But right now, here's the other gigantic takeaway from this election. The Republican National Committee has taken stepping on their own dicks to a river dancing level. Like, it is insane. Gregory Hines' kind of speed and precision in stepping upon their own junk. It has been a clown car, a comedy of errors. Let's go ahead and just do the highlights. Number one, they can't get their own guy through, Jeb Bush. Number two, they can't get their second own guy through, Marco Rubio. Number three, they eventually settle on the guy that they hate, Ted Cruz, because he's got the best shot at beating Donald Trump. That fails. Number four, they can't moderate Donald Trump. They can't get anybody in his ear to say, dog, just stop it for 5 seconds. Can you please not just be a whirling dervish of insanity? Because this is where the chickens come home to roost for Donald. The morning of the Indiana primary, he is talking about how Ted Cruz's father, Rafael Cruz, was complicit in the JFK assassination. After the polls close in Indiana. And he is the victor. It has not been announced, but as the will of the people has already been sealed, he is still on Twitter hitting up Ted Cruz with Lion Ted. But guess what? Now it's Donald Trump's job to not be a bomb thrower. He has to do what he has shown a gigantic inability to do, which is make peace, make deals, make himself the most electable candidate for a block of people that have reviled him. Do you want to know how you do that? You get their endorsements. You get up on stage with them. You raise their hand and they raise yours, and together you say, we're going to defeat the other guy, or gal in this case. Now, if you are Little Marco, if you are Lion Ted, if you are John Kasich, I can't wait to bring up your record at Lehman Brothers so I can pin the economic collapse on you. If you are Jeb Bush, how excited do you think you'll be to do that? My guess is not very. Now, who knows what's going to happen a month and a half from now? Who knows? A month and a half from now, things might look a little bit different. And maybe everybody that I just mentioned will be excited to get up on stage and endorse Donald Trump, and will be excited to be surrogates to elements of the electorate that have turned on Donald Trump, and will be excited to vote against Hillary Clinton. But he's got to make the effort. He's got to have the follow-through, and he's got to make it happen. What is the likelihood of any of that happening? Who knows, man? Who knows? But let's get to Ted Cruz. If we are going to eulogize the Ted Cruz candidacy, you can say that it was something that went on far longer and was far more impressive than anybody gave it any kind of credit for. Tactically, Ted Cruz was the most shrewd version of his kind of candidacy that we've ever seen. In terms of the electoral and the voting bloc and the history, Ted Cruz was very much like other Tea Party superstars like, Rick Santorum or Newt Gingrich in the prior election. People that could not make it happen, that didn't have the foresight, that didn't have the operational capacity to make sure that their campaigns had the maximum opportunity to win. Ted Cruz made a lot out of a little. He won Iowa and then, used that actually as something propulsive as opposed to what normally happens to winners in Iowa who work really, really hard to do that. And that is, get exposed when they get to larger states. He won Texas by a sizable margin. He was delegate hunting like no one had ever seen before. He was preparing himself for a contested convention, the likes of which we'd never seen, in the modern era. And ultimately, he got out when it made sense to get out. Which is more than we can say, and I'm sorry to get back to this, but John Kasich, who apparently is the guy who doesn't understand that the waiters putting chairs on top of the tables is the sign to get the hell out of the restaurant. John Kasich single-handedly denying Ted Cruz his opportunity to go one-on-one with Donald Trump. John Kasich, really the only thing that makes sense for John Kasich, who will officially retreat from the race tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern time, the only thing that makes sense is if he runs as Trump's vice president, and that was his plan from the beginning, which is odd because he's literally he was running as I'm better than Trump for the last 3 months. So I don't get it. I don't understand it, but at least I would understand his patterns of behavior if that was his plan to begin with, was just to sabotage, and that way his whole little hashtag Never Trump alliance with Ted Cruz was always meant to explode on the platform. Now, meanwhile, you have a GOP in turmoil, and you have waiting Hillary Clinton. And I am going to get into this a lot more on Friday's show, but let me just tell you, get ready. Prepare yourself. Because the bad days are here. They're back. The all or nothing days. Oh, they're here. They're here. This is going to be the demagogue election. This is the pretty hate machine general. This is a knife fight, the likes of which we will have never seen before. If you are a fan of campaigns of ideas, if you are a fan of campaigns of lofty hopes that show the best of us, well then, sir or madam, please check your expectations at the gate, because this is a flight into the mouth of aggression. This is something that we have not seen in my lifetime. This is going to be the demagogue's delight, the player hater's ball, the race to see which candidate can napalm the other one until they are so unpalatable that the government and the populace cannot even be thought of as being entrusted to them. This is not going to be about what can I do for you. This isn't going to be about how America needs to soar. This is going to be about F them. What are my qualifications? I'm not them. What am I going to do? Not be them. How am I going to achieve it? I've already done it because I'm someone else. What about my faults? Well, have you seen theirs? So do me a favor, Politicsx3 listeners, Politicsx3 viewers on YouTube.com/Justin R. Young. I want you to just think of something, because we're going to try and take an elevated view of this general election. And I, believe you me, can guarantee you it'll be free of personal bias. Because if I'm going to imagine two candidates from either side that I have little to nothing in common with, then we've found the two. Don't you worry. This is going to be a meta look at maybe the most dirty, disgusting, gross general election we have ever seen. But I want you to keep something in your mind. Whenever you talk to your friends, be they conservative or Republicans, or liberals or Democrats, however they define their party affiliation, and you talk to them about the general election, I want you to just repeat this sentence. Tell me what's great about your candidate without mentioning the other one. Because I believe that you're not ever going to be more than 2 seconds away from talking about the other one. Now, this happens all the time, but I believe it will be worse than it has ever been before in this one. Oh. It is the showdown of the century. And I don't mean that it's going to be anything that is good to watch, man. In fact, this is what we've wanted. This is what we've needed. We've always just begged. Oh, we've wanted this election for so long. Every time that we let a candidate just, demagogue the other one. And this has always happened, man. This is always something. There's always, oh no, this is the worst candidate. This is the worst candidate that has ever stepped foot John Kerry's the worst candidate. George W. Bush is the worst candidate. Ronald Reagan's the worst candidate. Michael Dukakis is the worst candidate. Jimmy Carter is the worst candidate. Mitt Romney's the worst candidate. John McCain's the worst candidate. Barack Obama's the worst candidate. They are all the worst. We've said it so many times, like kids in front of a mirror during a sleepover, that Bloody Mary actually appeared. Clinton versus Trump. We actually have it. We actually have the election that we have just play fought about before. Oh, it's on. It's on. The knife fight's here. And there will be blood in the streets. And we will find out as a country whether or not we really wanted it or we were just playing. Because every other election that I just mentioned, the civility, the foppish dandiness of the two of them, man, it is going to make Bush versus Kerry look like the Algonquin Round Table. Because this one's going to get dirty. Christina Aguilera featuring Redman dirty with 2 R's. It is going to get gross. And you will have a front row seat if you are listening or watching this political podcast. That about breaks it down for our emergency edition of the program. Go ahead and no big plugs. Email us, of course. I'm sure everybody has a lot of opinions coming out of this. JustinRobertYoung@gmail.com. Put politics in the subject line so I can sort everything out easy enough. Also, go ahead and support us on Patreon, patreon.com/JURY. Listen, in a world not far away, I had to work today. I don't have to work today. I can do this little mini podcast for you guys, and I am excited to do it. So go ahead and kick in a little bit as we get into the general election. And by the way, if you're watching on video, if I do look like a hobo, it's because I went out running, and then I had to do a business call. The business call went long, but I wanted to go live at the time that I tweeted out on Twitter, so I apologize for looking like a big stinking hobo. If you think I look like trash, you should smell how I smell. That about wraps it up.
Politics, 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 politics.
Thank you, guys. We'll be back on Friday. Maybe a special guest. I don't know if Brian's going to be around, but until next time, some people talk about politics, others talk about politics, but this is the only show that really talks politics. See you next time.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.